Greetings and welcome to India Business Insights. Today we are going to be discussing the environmental laws in India. Any governing body must include environmental legislation as a crucial component. It consists of a set of rules and legislation pertaining to environmental factors, including water quality, air quality, and others. The management of particular natural resources such as forests, minerals, or fisheries is the main objective of India's environmental laws, which are inspired by environmental legal principles. What was intended by the Constitution is directly reflected in the environmental laws in India. The Indian Constitution and the country's international commitments both recognize the need for environmental preservation, protection, as well as sustainable resource usage. India's environmental laws have a long history. Following the UN Conference on the Human Environment in Stockholm in 1972, a comprehensive and established framework for environmental protection was created. As a result, the National Council for Environmental Policy and Planning was established in the Science and Technology Division in 1972. This was created to create a governing body for the examination of environmental-related problems and issues. Later, the Ministry of Environmental and Forests placed this council. The Indian government has taken a number of actions to safeguard the environment and biodiversity. The following is a list and explanation of the significant and influential environmental laws as well as acts. Provisions in the Indian Constitution relating to the environment. The Indian Constitution includes the protection of the environment among its fundamental duties and directive principles of the state policy. Directive elements of government policy, Part 4, Section 48A. Environment protection, improvement, and preservation of forests and wildlife. The state shall make efforts to safeguard the nation's forests and wildlife as well as to maintain and develop the environment. Basic responsibility, Part 4A, Chapter 51A, to exhibit compassion for all living things and to preserve and enhance the natural environment, including woods, lakes, rivers, and wildlife. Now, we come to the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. The Act covers matters related to, ancillary to, or incidental to the protection of wild animals, birds, and plants. It encompasses the entirety of India. There are 6 schedules with various levels of protection. Schedule 1 and Part 2 of Schedule offer complete protection. Violations thereunder are subject to the harshest punishments. Schedule 3 and Schedule 4 species are likewise protected, but the consequences are substantially less severe. Schedule 5 animals such as common crows, fruit bats, rats, and mice are regarded as vermin by the law and are subject to open hunting. It is forbidden to cultivate or plant any of the Schedule 6 listed indigenous plants. Statutory bodies under WPA include National Board for Wildlife and State Wildlife Advisory Boards, Central Zoo Authority, Wildlife Crime Control Bureau, and National Tiger Conservation Authority. The Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1974. To provide water pollution prevention and management, preserving or regaining the purity and wholesomeness of water from all available sources. It gives State Pollution Control Board and Centre Pollution Control Boards regulatory jurisdictions. The Water Act of 1974 established the statutory bodies known as CPCB and SPCB, and it gives them the authority to create and enforce effluent standards for factories that release pollutants into bodies of water. Along with developing policies for the avoidance of water pollution and coordinating the efforts of various SPCBs and CPCB, carries out the same duties for Union Territory. By accepting, refusing, and granting consent to discharge, SPCB regulates sewage and industrial effluent discharge. The Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act, 1981. The Act's main goals are to provide for prevention, control, and abatement of air pollution, provide for the establishment of the boards at the central and state levels to execute the Act, and to control and prevent air pollution in India. The task was handed to CPCB and SPCB. It states that the predetermined limit shall not be exceeded by the emission of particulate matter, lead, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, volatile organic compounds, or other toxic substances from other sources of air pollution, such as internal combustion engines, industry, vehicles, power plants, etc. It enables the state government to identify regions with high levels of air pollution. The Environment Protection Act 1986. Article 253 was leveraged to pass this legislation for giving effect to international agreements. After the Bhopal gas incident in December 1984, this law was passed. It was implemented to achieve the Stockholm Declaration from the 1972 UN Conference on the Human Environment. Under the EPA of 1986, which mandates 10-kilometer buffer zones around the protected sites, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change notifies eco-sensitive zones or environmentally vulnerable zones. The National Coastal Zone Management Authority and the Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee are statutory agencies under the EPA of 1986, which was later converted to National Ganga Council under the Ministry of Jal Shakti. The Ozone Depleting Substances Regulation and Control Rules 2000. It regulated the production, sale, import and export of goods containing ODS and established timeframes for the phase-out of specific substances, ODSs. These regulations forbid the use of CFCs, halons, ODSs such as methyl chloroform and carbon tetrachloride, and SFC aside from metered dose inhalers and other medical uses. Coastal Regulation Zone Notification 2018. Based on the Shailesh Nayak Committee's recommendations, it was announced to encourage sustainable growth while keeping in mind natural dangers like rising sea level due to global warming, and to provide the livelihood security of local residents, particularly fishers, as well as the conservation and protection of wildlife. CRZs have been classified into 4 zones of regulation. CRZ1 is the ecologically sensitive areas such as mangroves, coral reefs, salt marshes, turtle nesting ground, and the intertidal zone. CRZ2 are areas close to the shoreline and which have been developed. CRZ3 include coastal areas that are not substantially built up, including rural coastal areas. CRZ4 include water area from low tide line to the limit of territorial waters of India. Now we come to the Energy Conservation Act of 2001. It was implemented as a measure to increase energy efficiency and decrease waste. It details the requirements for appliances and equipment's energy consumption. It lays up guidelines and regulation for consumers' energy consumption. It specifies building standards for commercial structures that conserve energy. The Act created the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, a statutory organization. Next is the Biological Diversity Act of 2002. It was put into place to make the CBD and Nagoya Protocol effective. Through the 3-tiered framework of central, state, and local boards and committees to prevent biopiracy, safeguard biological variety, and assist local growers. To establish biodiversity management committees, BMC, state biodiversity boards, SBBS, and the National Biodiversity Authority, NBA, BMCS. Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers, Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006, FRA. The statute recognizes and grants the occupation of forest land to other traditional forest dwellers, OTFD, and forest dwelling scheduled tribes, FDST, that have lived there for many generations. The Ministry of Tribal Affairs is in charge of this action. The Act also provides the duties and powers for ecological maintenance of FDST and OTFD, biodiversity protection and sustainable use. While protecting the FDST and OTFD's way of life and food security, it strengthens the conservation regime for the forests. It aims to right historical wrongs committed against the OTFD and FDST, which are crucial to the sustainability and survival of the forest ecosystem. Lastly, we come to Compensatory Aforestation Fund Act 2016. The Compensatory Aforestation Fund Management and Planning Authority oversaw the monies received for compensatory afforestation up until the time the CAF Act was implemented. Compensatory afforestation is the practice of planting trees over an equal area of non-forest land, or, in the absence of such land, twice the area of degraded forest land, whenever forest land is diverted for uses other than forestry, such as mining or industrial reasons. According to the regulations, 90% of the CAF funds must go to the states and 10% must be kept by the centre. The funds can be used for a variety of projects, including clearing catchment areas, assisting natural generation, managing forests and wildlife, relocating villages from protected areas, resolving conflicts between people and wildlife, creating training and awareness, providing wood-saving equipment, and other related tasks. Thank you for watching. Please stay tuned for our upcoming parts in the series of environmental laws, and please don't forget to share and subscribe to our channel.